Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm so glad you stopped by. Today's story is deeply personal. It's about love, loss, and the painful choices that can change a family forever. I'm going to share with you how my daughter's life took a dark turn, the sentence she faced, and the heavy weight of a mother's guilt that followed. This isn't just a story about consequences. It's about what happens when we lose control of the people we love most. So, grab a seat and let's get into it. My daughter was sentenced to 10 years and she said, "It's all my fault." Those words echoed in my mind like a haunting refrain as I sat in the cold, sterile courtroom, my hands clenched so tightly in my lap that my knuckles turned white. The harsh fluorescent lights overhead seemed determined to expose every flaw in the polished wooden benches and the solemn faces that refused to meet mine. To my left, the court clerk shuffled a thick stack of papers with nervous energy. To my right, a burly deputy shifted his weight, his eyes never leaving the young woman sitting in the defendant's chair. Emily, my daughter. She didn't look at me when the verdict was read. Not a flicker of recognition or pleading crossed her face. When the judge's gavel came down, she remained motionless, jaw clenched, back straight, like she had been waiting for this moment all along. But as the bailiff stepped forward to escort her out, Emily glanced back over her shoulder. It wasn't a look for comfort. It wasn't hope or sorrow. It was accusation. Silent, cold, and sharp as a blade. I felt it like a physical blow, more cutting than any judge's sentence. The judge's voice was steady but heavy with finality. 10 years at the state penitentiary, with no parole eligibility for the first 5 years. The courtroom murmured. A woman in the back sobbed quietly. My throat tightened until words became impossible. Emily was already rising, her wrists cuffed, her gaze unwavering as she walked away from me. And I was rooted to the bench, trapped in the worst kind of failure, a mother who could do nothing but watch. When the courtroom doors slammed shut behind her, the silence was suffocating, thicker than the sentence itself. I kept waiting to wake up from this nightmare. But the icy numbness creeping into my fingers told me otherwise. I had believed I was a good mother. Or at least I wanted to believe it. I worked hard to keep a roof over our heads. I tried to teach Emily right from wrong. I told myself that if I loved her enough, she'd be okay. But somewhere, somehow, I lost her. Was it the day her father walked out? Or maybe it was before that, a slow unraveling I refused to see. Or perhaps the truth was even darker. Maybe I never really had her to begin with. The bailiff's footsteps echoed down the hall, carrying away my last illusions. The final image burned into my mind wasn't of the little girl who used to curl into my lap with a storybook. It was the woman in the defendant's cage. Eyes sharp, accusing, telling the whole courtroom without a word that this was on me. I pressed my palms together, desperate to steady my breath. But my mind was already spinning backward, grasping at the frayed threads that led us here. Seaside, Washington. The salty air mixed with the sharp tang of cedar. The sound of waves crashing against rugged cliffs. My mother's old house, paint peeling, the porch swing creaking with the wind. That's where it started. Or maybe that's where it began to fall apart. It was a small family, just me and my mother, Linda. She raised me alone in that coastal town, teaching me everything from fixing leaky faucets to standing up for myself when people tried to push me down. She was steady like the tides, and I thought I had inherited that strength. But nothing prepared me for what came after I left Seaside for college. I thought I was stepping into a brighter future. Instead, I was walking straight into the storm that shattered everything. That courtroom smelled of old wood and stale coffee. But the feeling was familiar. Not that exact place, but that crushing moment when you know something is breaking beyond repair. Back then, it was just the soft creak of the porch swing, my mother's voice humming through the kitchen, and the endless whisper of the sea beyond the dunes. It was the safety I thought I'd always have. But I left it all behind. The night I met Jackson Pierce was the moment my life quietly began to unravel. It was winter 2006, Portland. The city was shrouded in fog that softened the streetlights into glowing halos, making every sound feel intimate and close. I remember the crunch of frost beneath my boots as I walked toward the outdoor ice rink in Pioneer Courthouse Square, my scarf wrapped tight around my face, breath puffing in the cold air. I'd been in Portland for a year, balancing university classes with a part-time job at a bookstore that smelled of old paper and cinnamon coffee. That night was supposed to be an escape, a brief reprieve from exams and rent, a chance to glide beneath twinkling lights and feel normal again. The rink buzzed with laughter, the scrape of blades on ice, and soft holiday tunes spilling from hidden speakers. I laced up my skates and stepped onto the ice, the cold biting my nose. That's when I saw him. Jackson leaned casually against the railing, one hand tucked in his dark coat pocket, the other holding a steaming cup. His hair was the kind of dark that caught golden highlights under the lights, and his smile as he watched a little boy stumble on the ice was effortless and warm. He didn't look like someone who would change my life. But sometimes the most dangerous people don't. I skated past him, pretending not to notice the way his eyes followed me. On my second lap he stepped onto the ice. "You're fast," he said with a grin. Trying not to freeze, I shot back. He laughed, a rich sound that lingered. "I'm Jackson Pierce," he said, extending a gloved hand. I hesitated but took it. We circled the rink, talking about everything and nothing. Favorite books, terrible professors, the quietness of the city at night. He studied business and worked at his uncle's firm. I told him about the bookstore and my dream of having my own place someday. Between a clumsy turn and nearly falling, his hand caught mine again, warm, steady. When the rink closed, we headed to a nearby cafe. The windows fogged, the smell of espresso and fresh bread wrapped around us. We talked until the barista called last call. I realized I hadn't laughed that much in years. Maybe this was the moment my mother said was worth waiting for. Over the next months, Jackson became a constant. Coffee before work, late-night calls, weekend adventures exploring the city's hidden corners. He made me feel like I was the center of a story I didn't yet understand. Looking back, that was the first warning sign. How easily I let him in. How quickly I began orbiting his world. One cold night on the Burnside Bridge, snowflakes melting on my skin, Jackson asked me, "Do you ever feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be?" He nodded. But I didn't know that feeling was sometimes a trap. If I'd known, maybe I would have walked away. But I didn't. That night was the first step toward the courtroom, toward watching my daughter walk away in handcuffs. Our first year felt like a dream. Jackson had a way of making everything extraordinary. Grocery trips turned adventures, rainy afternoons lazy and warm, late-night drives almost sacred. By spring, his small apartment in the Pearl District was ours, though I still kept my old studio for appearances. I told myself it was practical, but I barely went there anymore. Jackson liked control. His coffee black, his mornings silent. I bent at first. Compromise, not sacrifice, I told myself. We talked about vague futures. Trips to Europe, a bigger place, maybe kids someday. Dreams we never quite reached. Then, in late October, I found out I was pregnant. Alone in the cramped bathroom, the test shaking in my hand, 2 pink lines glaring back. For a day, I carried that secret, rehearsing a happy announcement. But when I told Jackson, the response was nothing like I imagined. He froze, then said, cold as ice, "This isn't the plan." I wanted him to say he was happy. Instead, he said he wasn't ready. "We're not ready," he said again. His distance grew. Long nights, clipped words, cold shoulders. One evening, I came home to a half-packed suitcase. "You should go back to your mom," he said. "Figure things out." Packed quietly, heartbreaking. The bus ride to Seaside was gray and silent. My mother's arms were the only warmth I found that day. Seaside became refuge and trap. My mother, Linda, a pillar of quiet strength, had raised me alone after my father's drowning when I was 6. When my daughter, Emily, was born, my mother was the first to hold her. "She's perfect," she whispered. For a while, life settled into a rhythm. I worked day shifts at a diner. My mother cared for Emily. At night, I'd come home to see them curled together, my mother humming lullabies, Emily's fingers tangled in her sweater. But I felt a growing distance. Emily looked to my mother more than me for comfort. Small acts of defiance chipped away at my authority. When Emily started kindergarten, she told me Grandma let her skip reading when she was tired. I told myself it was love. Yet, I wondered if Emily saw me as a parent or a visitor. By 11, the cracks deepened. I planned a beach day, just Emily and me. She asked if Grandma could come. I said no, but she insisted. "It's more fun with Grandma," she said. That night, watching her sleep, I felt the cold distance between us. By 15, Emily had changed. Sharp hazel eyes, striking features, but an edge I didn't recognize. She broke curfew, slipped away at night. Her grades slipped. She ran with a new crowd, kids with chipped black nails and cigarettes. I found alcohol hidden in her room. Then there was Dylan. Older, with a crooked smile and a cigarette always dangling. Emily climbed into his truck like she belonged there. I confronted her. "He's just a friend," she said, voice sharp. But I knew better. Months passed. Money vanished. Trust shattered. And on the day the police came, Emily looked at me broken. "It's all my fault," she whispered. But in that courtroom, I knew the truth was more complicated. It was never just hers. Thank you for listening and being here with me today. Stories like this remind us how fragile life can be, and how important it is to hold on to those we love, even when things feel broken beyond repair. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing, and don't forget to share your thoughts or your own stories in the comments below. Remember, none of us are alone in facing life's hardest moments. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.